Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and in today's video we're going to be installing an amp sub combo on this Ford Edge. Now in this video we're going to show you how to integrate this amp and sub to the factory audio sound system. Let's get started. Now one quick thing to note, our Ford Edge does not have the upgraded factory Sony sound system, so we don't need to be integrating into that. So be just conscientious of that. If you do have the Sony sound system, you'll probably have to install yours just a little bit differently, but we can cover that at a later time. Alright, so here at the bench, the parts that we're going with first and foremost is the amp sub combo that we're referring to. It's this powered loaded subwoofer enclosure that actually can fit underneath one of the front seats. This is the NVX-Q BUS 10P. It's a 200 watt RMS, 500 watt peak, 10-inch subwoofer that has the built-in amplifier all in one. It's really nice. What's new about this version of this NVX sub is it actually has a little port on the side for a little bit more output volume. Now to get that wired into the vehicle, you'll need a general amplifier wiring kit. We're using a new concept CCA 8-gauge kit. It's all it needs for about 200 watts. And we can link these parts down in the description. Now we could just throw it up underneath the seat and call it a day, but here in the Provo Beast garage we're going to build an ABS mount to secure it in place so it doesn't move around, just because the carpet underneath the seat isn't totally flat. So what we've done here is we've actually built this ABS plastic mount. We've spent some time, cut it. It's going to grab the peg on both sides and the bolt, and essentially here use the seat anchor points to secure the sub in one spot so it's not moving around. There is a vent up in the center of the floor there, and we cut the slit here so it can still vent out. So we're not totally enclosing that floor vent underneath the seat. This will screw to this, and then this will bolt into the factory location up underneath the seat. Again, we're snagging both pegs here and the back seat bolt. We've already pre-drilled. Everything will mount to this plastic sheet. This was a 12 by 16 ABS sheet, and we can link one of these in the description in case you want to pick some up yourself. So the first thing that we need to do is head to the car and start prepping our wiring kit. Now most wiring kits that you'll need, especially with this one, it's an 8-gauge wiring kit, and the kit comes with power, ground, some split loom, fuse, RCAs, remote turn on wire, and some accessories there like ring terminals. This built-in amplifier comes with a supplied harness which will attach to speaker wires in the car. So if you're running the factory head unit, this just needs to attach to one of your speaker wires. You can go to left and right or combine both positives and negatives and just go to a single channel, being that it's just a sub. Now, if you have the factory Sony sound system, you can't just go to any speaker, as that Sony amp is going to have some passive crossovers built into the amp. So alternatively, you'd probably need to run these to the factory subwoofer or use a high power line out converter for the factory sub, which we can link down in the description as well. So at this point, let's go ahead and pull our wiring kit apart. Let's head to the car up underneath the hood and start planning our power wire route from the battery to where we're going to be mounting our amplifier. Alright, so up underneath the hood, our battery is located there, here on the driver's side. It's kind of tough up underneath the windshield shelf there, and essentially we need to find a firewall access from the power terminal through the firewall to the underside part of the front driver's seat. So let's go ahead and go from the inside to find that firewall access. Now here we are underneath the steering column. If we look up here, there is some sound deadening that you can pull back, and there's a hard rubber grommet that exposes a hole or access into the engine bay. So we're actually going to pop that on out and use that to basically fish our wire into the engine bay. Now generally this has been reserved in case you have the manual transmission. There's not very many models of these that are manual. If you do have a manual, you'll have to find another grommet there, but in our case, this being in use, it's a perfect location for a power wire. Alright, so what we've done there is we popped that rubber guy on out here, pull that on out. We fished a hanger to help us feed wire up into the engine bay, and we're going to go top side to see and show you what that looks like. So up here, we're going to go ahead and start feeding our power wire through that firewall, and this is where it came out. We just taped a hanger to it, so that'll easily allow us to just pull that on through without trying to fish back behind the battery location. Alrighty, so we actually pulled this all apart just so we could run our wire up underneath. We'll zip tie it to the factory loom, and it comes out about here, because that's exactly where we're going to put our sub and amp combo, up underneath the seat with that amp mount. Now while we're under here, we noticed we have some great factory grounds. What we're going to do is pull one of them out, we'll clean up the paint a little bit, and that's where we're going to ground our amplifier, is on the rail seat support here, up underneath the carpet. Perfect location. So while we're under here, we're going to go ahead and pull that off, use a wire brush, and get our amp grounded there. Clean up the paint, put our terminal up underneath the factory terminal, tighten everything back down. Nice and clean connection. That runs down here, and we'll come out just about there and go to our powered subwoofer. So with that power ground out of the way, we need to finish up the fuse holder up underneath the hood. And secondly, we need to go ahead and start running our speaker wire to tap into the rear door speaker here in the rear door for our signal. Alright, so we're prepping our high level harness here. Now this is the harness that came with it. Since we're tapping into the factory sound system, we are going to be pulling speaker from just the rear door driver's side speaker. Now to do that, we could also pull signal from the passenger side rear door speaker. But since we're doing a mono amplifier, we're fine just combining the both positives and both negatives together. Now what's positive and negative is if you look at the harness this way, with the harness plug here on the side, the tops are your positives, the bottoms are your negatives. And we found that out through the instructions because it's not labeled at all. It's kind of dumb. So with those identified, we went ahead and soldered onto this with a longer connection, and we're going to feed it through there. Since that soldering is cooled, we can move our heat shrink up and over those connections. We'll shrink them down. We're going to loom up our harness here, and then we'll get that plugged into the high level input on the amplifier side. On here on the amp, we've got our bass knob run through. We'll run that to our desired location. This is where our high level input harness plugs in, and then this is where our power and ground will go in. Now, there is a remote turn on. We won't need that because this has a generated remote turn on built in. It's a built-in circuit where if it senses audio, either the audio signal or DC offset from the factory audio system, it's going to turn on the amp sub for us. We don't have to run and find a remote turn on wire, which is nice. So we're not going to run one in our application here today because it'll automatically turn on when it senses audio over our high level input harness. So with that all done, we're going to go ahead and shrink the tubes, get this all finished up, get it into the car. We'll get our power and ground hooked up here. All right, so we loomed our harness with a little bit of Tessa tape here, put it through a little hole we made. We loomed the harness and specific wire connections just to keep it as a bundle. And then when it turns into just our speaker wire from that point forward, it doesn't need to be loomed because it'll be just fine on its own. So let's go ahead and now get this thing mounted in the car. Alright, so with the B pillar off, you have just a short length of wire here that's exposed that comes out of the B pillar into the floor, and we pulled the tape off there. We're going to certainly relume it here, but there's going to be a twisted pair. Now you're going to have a white and a green and a brown and a yellow. That's going to be your positive and negative for this side. We'll show you what the colors are for the other side as well in case you want to tap into both sides. Positive is our blue wire, so we put a wire through and basically soldered onto that connection. Same thing with our negative. We just need to tape up those connections here, and it's nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. And that is where we tapped into our speaker wire for signal for the amplifier. Okay, so we've got everything taped up there. That's all done. We're just going to put a little Tessa tape up and over that, just like factory. Got everything in and buttoned up. Now we have our amp sub combo in there. We just need to line it up where it will fit those holes. Got all our gain and everything set to the factory radio here. And the nice thing is it'll bolt in and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's a perfect location for the sub. Now we unhooked the harness here from up underneath the seat just to give ourselves a little bit more slack. But for the most part, that should be it. Now at this point, we can start reassembling our panels here. We're going to mount our bass knob kind of up and over this area and get this thing finished up. Up underneath the hood here, we split loomed our wire. We actually created a little fuse holder and fuse mount, and we use wire ferrule so everything's nice and clean and tidy and sealed up with some heat shrink. It's basically a C-bend, and it's just clamped up underneath the battery as we tighten everything down. And then this goes up to the battery. Now, that goes to the tightening post. Depending on the gauge of wire, you may want to drill and tap and put your own bolt in, as we've done in the past. But since this is only 200 watts, small gauge wire should be just fine going to that post there as well. So with this all done up underneath the hood, we can shut the hood and start cleaning up inside. All right, so we went ahead and got our panels all back together. We did a quick test to make sure everything's working properly, but it is. And up underneath, everything is looking nice and clean. Got that done. Since we turned on the vehicle, it already booted up the unit. And generally when the DC offset is off, or there's no more audio playing, and the vehicle basically goes to sleep, the amplifier will turn off with it as well. So that's all done. Got our panels all back on here. We're just going to go ahead and mount our bass knob. But other than that, we're getting pretty close with this install. Alright, so we got everything back together. Our sub is nicely tucked back up underneath. Everything is sounding great. Let's show you what it looks like from behind. Back up underneath, there's still plenty of space for the floor vent to vent out. We got our nice port facing backwards for some just output volume there. Everything is back. We just need to do a quick vacuum and wipe down, and that's about it. That's about it for this video. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. We'll link all the parts that we use down in the description. Hopefully this is a good little quick tutorial for you on how to install an amplifier and sub underneath the driver's side front seat. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit the like button if you like what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe. I post great content on the channel all the time, and we'll see you in the next video.